Why modern minds collapse under pressure. There was a time when the human brain only needed to survive simple dangers. A storm approaching in the distance, the sound of footsteps in the dark, a wild animal moving through the trees, short moments of danger, short bursts of fear, then silence, then recovery. But the modern world changed everything. Now pressure never truly stops. Notifications, deadlines, noise, comparison, fear about the future, stress about money, constant stimulation, constant uncertainty. And the human nervous system was never fully designed for this endless psychological pressure. This is why so many people feel exhausted without understanding why. Their body is resting, but their mind never is. Because modern stress is invisible. No predator is chasing you. No physical threat stands in front of you. And yet your nervous system reacts as if danger is everywhere. Every message feels urgent. Every problem feels overwhelming. Every uncertainty feels threatening. And slowly, without realizing it, the brain begins living in survival mode. This is where emotional control disappears. This is where people panic under pressure, overreact emotionally, lose clarity, make poor decisions, and eventually become mentally exhausted. But here's the truth most people never learn. Pressure itself is not the real problem. The real problem is an untrained mind. Because pressure does not automatically create panic. It reveals the level of control you have over your nervous system. Some people collapse under pressure, others become calmer, sharper, more focused. The difference is not luck, it is conditioning. This is the deeper reality behind emotional resilience. The brain can be trained. The nervous system can be rewired. Calmness can be developed. And mental stability is not something people are born with. It is something they practice. Another important idea is that most people confuse stimulation with danger. The brain reacts emotionally long before logic appears. This is because the nervous system is designed to protect survival first. Not happiness, not peace, survival. And in the modern world, psychological discomfort often triggers the same survival responses as physical danger, embarrassment, rejection, failure, uncertainty. The brain interprets these experiences as threats. Heart rate increases, breathing changes, muscles tighten, focus narrows, and the body prepares for danger, even when no real physical danger exists. This is why people freeze during stress. Why they overthink? Why anxiety feels physical? Because the body believes survival is at risk. Another key concept is emotional contagion. Stress spreads, fear spreads, panic spreads. One anxious person can affect an entire room. One emotional reaction can influence everyone nearby. Because the human nervous system constantly reads emotional signals from others. This is why environment matters so deeply. If you constantly surround yourself with chaos, your nervous system adapts to chaos. If you constantly consume fear, your mind begins expecting danger everywhere, and eventually stress becomes your normal emotional state. Another powerful idea is that calmness is not passive. Most people misunderstand calm people. They think calmness means weakness, softness, lack of intensity. But true calmness is controlled power. It is emotional discipline under pressure. It is the ability to remain clear while others become reactive. And this ability changes everything, because pressure destroys emotional people first. But calm people think clearly during chaos, and clear thinking creates better decisions. Another important principle is nervous system conditioning. Your emotional reactions are trained patterns, not fixed personality traits. If your nervous system repeatedly experiences stress without recovery, it becomes hyper-alert, reactive, sensitive. But if your nervous system repeatedly practices calmness during stress, it slowly adapts. This is how resilience is built, not in comfort, but through controlled exposure to pressure. Another key idea is that most people never learned emotional regulation. They learned suppression, distraction, avoidance, but not regulation. So under pressure, emotions take control. And when emotions take control, logic weakens. This is why emotional mastery matters. Not because emotions are bad, but because uncontrolled emotions distort perception. Another powerful concept is internal safety. People search for safety externally. More money, more certainty, more control. But external stability can disappear at any moment. True calmness comes from internal stability, knowing you can handle discomfort, uncertainty, pressure. Without collapsing emotionally, this creates real confidence. Another important idea is the relationship between breathing and emotional state. Breathing changes emotion immediately. Fast, shallow breathing signals danger to the brain. Slow, controlled breathing signals safety. This means breath directly affects nervous system activity, and most people breathe incorrectly during stress without realizing it, which intensifies panic. Another key concept is overstimulation. Modern minds are overloaded constantly. Too much information, too much comparison, too much emotional input, and overstimulation weakens emotional control because the brain never fully recovers. This creates chronic stress patterns. Another powerful idea is mental recovery. The nervous system requires recovery periods, silence, stillness, rest. Without recovery, emotional stability weakens over time. Another important principle is attention control. Where attention goes, emotional energy follows. If attention constantly focuses on danger, fear grows. If attention focuses on solutions, clarity grows. This is why focus matters deeply during pressure. Another key idea is identity under stress. Pressure reveals conditioning. Some people identify as fragile under stress. Others identify as capable under pressure. And identity influences emotional reaction immediately. Another powerful concept is emotional momentum. One fearful thought creates another, then another, then another, until panic builds momentum. But calmness works the same way. One controlled breath, one stable thought, one intentional action. These also create momentum. Another important idea is emotional awareness. Most people react emotionally before they become aware of what they are feeling. But awareness interrupts automatic reactions, and interruption creates control. Another key concept is physical tension. Stress is stored physically. Tight muscles, jaw tension, shallow breathing, restlessness. The body and mind mirror each other constantly. Another powerful idea is psychological endurance. Mental strength is not built through comfort. It is built by learning to remain stable while discomfort exists. Another important principle is uncertainty tolerance. Most anxiety comes from trying to control uncertainty, but mentally resilient people learn to function despite uncertainty, and this creates emotional freedom. Another key idea is detachment from catastrophic thinking. The brain naturally exaggerates danger during stress. Learning to observe thoughts without immediately believing them changes emotional reactions dramatically. Another powerful concept is self-regulation before external control. You cannot control the world completely, but you can train your response to it, and this is where true power begins. Finally, This first lesson reveals a powerful truth. Pressure is unavoidable. Stress is unavoidable. Difficult moments are unavoidable. But panic is not unavoidable. Emotional collapse is not unavoidable. Because calmness is not something you either have or do not have. It is something you train. And once the mind learns stability under pressure, everything changes. Your decisions, your emotions, your focus, your confidence. Because the person who controls their nervous system controls their response to life. In the next part, we will go deeper into the survival brain itself and uncover why your mind reacts to pressure the way it does. Your brain was programmed for survival, not peace. Most people believe something is wrong with them when they feel anxious under pressure, when their heart races, when their thoughts spiral, when fear takes over logic. They think they are weak, broken, emotionally unstable. But the truth is much deeper than that. Your brain was never designed for constant peace. It was designed for survival. And survival changes everything. Because the brain's primary job is not happiness, not confidence, not calmness. Its primary job is to keep you alive. This is one of the most important things to understand about emotional control. Your nervous system is not trying to make you peaceful. It is trying to protect you, even when the danger is psychological instead of physical. This is why pressure feels so intense, because deep inside the brain, pressure is often interpreted as threat, and threat activates survival systems automatically. Another important idea is that the survival brain reacts faster than logic. Long before rational thinking appears, the nervous system has already reacted. Heart rate changes, breathing changes, muscles tighten, attention narrows, stress hormones release into the body, all before conscious thought fully forms. This is why emotional reactions often feel automatic, because they are. The survival system activates first, logic comes later. Another key concept is the ancient brain versus the modern world. Thousands of years ago, stress was temporary, a sudden danger, a short-term threat. Then recovery. But modern stress is constant. Emails, deadlines, social pressure, financial pressure, endless stimulation. And the brain struggles to distinguish between physical danger and psychological stress. So the nervous system remains activated for long periods of time, and prolonged activation creates exhaustion. Another powerful idea is that chronic stress changes the brain. The more often the nervous system experiences stress, the more sensitive it becomes. This is called conditioning. The brain learns repeated emotional states. If stress becomes constant, the nervous system adapts to stress. Hyperalertness becomes normal. Calmness begins to feel unfamiliar. This is why many people feel uncomfortable when life becomes quiet, because their nervous system became addicted to stimulation. Another important principle is the fight-or-flight response. When the brain detects danger, it prepares for survival, fight, run, freeze, or panic. This response was useful in physical danger, but in modern life, it activates during emotional discomfort too. Public speaking, conflict, pressure at work, uncertainty about the future. The brain reacts as if survival itself is threatened, even when no physical danger exists. Another key idea is emotional memory. The brain stores stressful experiences emotionally, not only logically. If someone repeatedly experienced fear during childhood, the nervous system may become highly reactive later in life. This is why some people overreact to situations that seem small externally, because the reaction is connected to deeper emotional conditioning. Another powerful concept is prediction. The brain constantly predicts future danger. It scans for problems, threats, risk. This is why anxious thinking feels repetitive. The brain believes it is helping you survive. But excessive prediction creates emotional exhaustion. Another important idea is nervous system sensitivity. Some people become highly sensitive to stress because their nervous system has remained activated too long. Small problems trigger large reactions, not because they are weak, but because the nervous system lost flexibility. This is why recovery matters deeply. Another key concept is emotional survival loops. Fear creates stress. Stress creates more fearful thinking. Fearful thinking increases nervous system activation, and the cycle repeats. Without awareness, people become trapped inside this loop for years. Another powerful idea is that thoughts affect biology. Thinking is not only mental. Thoughts create physical reactions. The body responds chemically to perception. This is why imagined danger can create real anxiety symptoms. Another important principle is safety signaling. The nervous system constantly asks one question: am I safe? And the answer comes not only from external situations, but from internal signals. Breathing, body tension, thought patterns, environment, all influence the brain's perception of safety. Another key idea is emotional exhaustion from hypervigilance. Many people constantly scan for problems without realizing it, expecting criticism, expecting failure, expecting danger. This state drains mental energy over time. Another powerful concept is nervous system adaptation. The brain adapts to repeated emotional states. If calmness is practiced repeatedly, the nervous system slowly learns calmness. This is how resilience is built. Not instantly, but through repetition. Another important idea is overstimulation weakens emotional regulation. Too much information, too much noise, too much emotional input. This overloads the nervous system, and overloaded systems react emotionally faster. Another key concept is the illusion of control. Many people try to eliminate uncertainty completely, but this is impossible, and the attempt itself creates anxiety. Mentally resilient people learn something different. They stop demanding certainty from life and begin building trust in their ability to handle uncertainty. Another powerful idea is emotional regulation through the body. The body can calm the mind, slow breathing, relaxed posture, stillness. These physical signals reduce survival activation. Another important principle is cognitive distortion under stress. When stress rises, perception changes. The brain exaggerates danger, overestimates risk, assumes worst-case scenarios. This is why calmness improves decision-making dramatically. Another key idea is identity under pressure. People often become whatever they repeatedly practice emotionally. If panic is practiced repeatedly, panic becomes automatic. If calmness is practiced repeatedly, calmness becomes automatic. Another powerful concept is emotional recovery speed. Mentally strong people are not emotionless. They simply recover faster. They return to balance faster. And this changes their entire life experience. Another important idea is awareness interrupts automatic survival reactions. The moment you observe your stress response consciously, you weaken its automatic control. Awareness creates space between emotion and reaction, and in that space, emotional mastery becomes possible. Another key concept is the difference between discomfort and danger. The nervous system often treats them as the same thing, but they are not. Discomfort is growth. Danger is threat. Learning this distinction changes emotional resilience profoundly. Another powerful idea is calmness as a trained biological state. Calmness is not personality. It is nervous system conditioning, and conditioning can change. Another important principle is emotional tolerance, the ability to remain stable while discomfort exists, without immediate escape, without panic. This is one of the greatest psychological strengths a person can develop. Another key idea is mental safety through self-trust. The nervous system calms when it believes, I can handle this. This internal trust changes emotional reactions deeply. Another powerful concept is rewiring through repetition. Every calm response during stress teaches the nervous system something new. That pressure does not always equal danger, and slowly emotional reactions begin changing. Finally, this lesson reveals a powerful truth. Your brain was built for survival, not modern emotional peace, which means calmness must be trained intentionally. And once you understand how the survival brain works, you stop fighting yourself, you begin retraining yourself, and that is where emotional freedom truly begins. In the next part, we will uncover how stress spreads between people and why your environment silently shapes your emotional state every single day. Stress is contagious. Most people believe stress is personal, something that exists only inside their own mind, their own body, their own emotions. But stress moves between people far more than most realize, silently, quickly, almost invisibly. One anxious person can change the emotional state of an entire room. One fearful voice can increase tension in everyone nearby. One emotionally reactive environment can slowly reshape the nervous system of the people inside it. Because human beings are deeply emotional mirrors. Your nervous system is constantly reading the emotional signals of others, facial expressions, tone of voice, body tension, energy, movement, even silence. And without conscious awareness, your brain begins adapting to the emotional environment around you. This is why some environments drain you without explanation, and why certain people make you feel emotionally exhausted after only a short time. It is not imagination. It is nervous system influence. Another important idea is emotional synchronization. Humans unconsciously synchronize emotional states with those around them. This once helped survival. If one person sensed danger, the group reacted quickly. But in the modern world, this creates emotional overload because fear spreads faster than calmness. Panic spreads faster than logic, and constant exposure to stressed people slowly conditions the nervous system toward hyper-alertness. Another key concept is mirror neurons. The brain contains systems designed to imitate emotional behavior. You unconsciously absorb emotional patterns from others. If you spend enough time around anxious people, your nervous system begins learning anxiety. If you spend enough time around calm people, your nervous system begins learning regulation. This is why environment matters more than most people understand, because repeated emotional exposure becomes conditioning. Another powerful idea is that stress changes perception. When surrounded by emotional panic, the brain begins interpreting neutral situations as dangerous. Small problems feel bigger. Minor uncertainty feels threatening. This is why collective fear becomes so powerful, because emotional states distort thinking. Another important principle is digital stress contagion. Stress no longer spreads only physically. It spreads through screens, news, social media, constant emotional stimulation. The modern nervous system absorbs fear from thousands of sources daily, and most people never fully disconnect long enough to recover. This creates chronic nervous system activation. Another key idea is emotional atmosphere. Every environment has emotional energy. A calm environment slows the nervous system. A chaotic environment activates it. And over time, the nervous system adapts to whatever atmosphere is repeated most often. This is why some people feel anxious constantly without understanding why. Their environment trained their nervous system into survival mode. Another powerful concept is emotional boundaries. Most people absorb emotional energy automatically. They internalize stress around them, but emotionally resilient people develop awareness. They learn to observe emotional states without fully absorbing them. This creates psychological separation, and that separation protects emotional stability. Another important idea is leadership under pressure. Calm people influence others. Just as panic spreads, calmness spreads too. One emotionally regulated person can stabilize an entire group during chaos, because nervous systems constantly affect each other. This is why emotional control is powerful beyond the individual. It changes environments. Another key concept is unconscious emotional imitation. People often copy emotional reactions without realizing it. If everyone panics, panic feels normal. If everyone overreacts, overreaction becomes acceptable. This is why group emotion can become dangerous, because logic disappears when emotional imitation becomes automatic. Another powerful idea is nervous system protection. Protecting your emotional state sometimes requires limiting exposure, not because avoidance creates strength, but because constant emotional overload weakens resilience. Recovery requires emotional space. Another important principle is media-driven hypervigilance. Modern media profits from attention, and fear captures attention quickly. This creates continuous exposure to danger-based emotional signals. The nervous system interprets this as constant threat, even when physically safe. Another key idea is emotional exhaustion through social pressure. Many people constantly absorb comparison, judgment, expectation, and these invisible pressures activate stress responses continuously. Another powerful concept is emotional awareness breaks contagion. The moment you recognize this stress is not fully mine, you interrupt automatic absorption. Awareness creates emotional separation, and separation creates control. Another important idea is calmness as emotional resistance. Remaining calm in chaotic environments requires intentional regulation, because the nervous system naturally imitates surrounding emotional states. Another key concept is breathing synchronization. Humans unconsciously match breathing patterns around them. Fast, anxious breathing increases group tension. Slow, controlled breathing reduces it. This is why calm people physically influence environments. Another powerful idea is emotional recovery environments. Certain places help regulate the nervous system naturally. Silence, nature, stillness, low stimulation. These environments allow the survival system to calm down. Another important principle is relational nervous system safety. Safe relationships calm the nervous system. Emotionally unstable relationships activate it. This affects long-term emotional health deeply. Another key idea is overstimulation addiction. Many people become so accustomed to emotional noise that calmness initially feels uncomfortable, because the nervous system adapted to chaos. This is why recovery sometimes feels strange at first. Another powerful concept is identity and emotional influence. If someone identifies as emotionally fragile, they absorb stress more easily. If someone identifies as emotionally grounded, they regulate more effectively. Identity shapes nervous system behavior. Another important idea is selective emotional exposure. You do not need to absorb every emotional signal around you. Awareness allows conscious filtering. Another key concept is calmness training through repetition. Repeated exposure to calm environments strengthens emotional regulation over time. The nervous system learns safety through repeated experience. Another powerful idea is emotional discipline during collective panic. Most people become emotionally reactive when everyone else reacts. But mentally strong people slow down, observe, breathe, and remain centered. This prevents emotional contagion from taking control. Another important principle is emotional influence responsibility. Your emotional state affects others too. Your calmness can stabilize people. Your panic can intensify fear. This means emotional regulation is not only personal, it is relational. Another key idea is nervous system recovery cycles. Without recovery, emotional contagion accumulates, and accumulated stress eventually becomes chronic anxiety or emotional burnout. Another powerful concept is intentional emotional environments. The people, spaces, and information you repeatedly expose yourself to shape your nervous system over time. Choosing wisely changes emotional resilience profoundly. Finally, this lesson reveals a powerful truth. Stress spreads, fear spreads, panic spreads, but calmness spreads too. And the person who learns to regulate their nervous system not only changes themselves, they change every environment they enter. In the next part, we will begin learning how calmness itself becomes a trainable skill, and how emotional stability can be strengthened through intentional practice. Calmness is a trainable skill. Most people believe calmness is personality, something you either naturally have or you do not. They look at emotionally stable people and assume they were born different, stronger, more balanced, less emotional. But this is one of the biggest misunderstandings about emotional resilience, because calmness is not talent. It is training, a conditioned nervous system response developed through repetition. Just like panic can become automatic, calmness can become automatic too. This changes everything, because it means emotional control is not reserved for a few people. It can be built, strengthened, practiced, and trained into the mind and body over time. Another important idea is that the brain learns through repetition. Whatever emotional state you repeatedly practice becomes easier to access. If stress and panic are repeated daily, the nervous system becomes faster at producing panic. But if calm regulation is practiced consistently, the nervous system slowly adapts to stability. This is why emotional reactions often feel automatic. They are trained patterns, not fixed identity. Another key concept is nervous system plasticity. The brain changes according to repeated experience. Neural pathways strengthen through use. This means emotional habits physically reshape brain patterns over time. Repeated fear strengthens fear pathways. Repeated calmness strengthens regulation pathways. The brain becomes more efficient at whatever it practices most often. Another powerful idea is emotional rehearsal. The mind can practice calmness before stressful situations happen. Visualization, breathing, mental preparation. These train the nervous system in advance. This is why elite performers rehearse mentally, because the nervous system responds to repeated, imagined experiences almost like real ones. Another important principle is controlled exposure. Avoidance weakens emotional resilience. Controlled exposure strengthens it. Every time you remain calm during manageable stress, the nervous system learns this discomfort is survivable. This pressure is not dangerous, and slowly, fear loses intensity. Another key idea is emotional regulation before emotional reaction. Most people react automatically first, then try calming down afterward. But emotionally resilient people interrupt reactions early. They notice physical tension, breathing changes, mental spirals, and they regulate before panic gains momentum. This creates control. Another powerful concept is the body teaches the brain. The nervous system constantly reads physical signals. Fast breathing increases stress. Tight muscles increase alertness. Rushed movement increases anxiety. But slowing, the body changes emotional state. Relaxed posture, controlled breathing, stillness. These signals teach the brain safety. Another important idea is consistency over intensity. Calmness is not built through one major breakthrough. It is built through small, repeated practice. Daily breathing regulation, daily awareness, daily emotional control. Tiny repetitions create long-term nervous system change. Another key concept is emotional endurance. Remaining calm does not mean feeling no stress. It means staying regulated while stress exists. This distinction matters deeply because mentally strong people still feel pressure. They simply recover faster and regulate more effectively. Another powerful idea is emotional interruption. Panic grows through momentum. One fearful thought triggers another, then another. But interruption stops momentum. A deep breath, awareness, grounding attention in the present moment. These actions weaken emotional escalation. Another important principle is self-observation without judgment. Many people panic about their panic. They become afraid of anxiety itself, and this intensifies emotional reactions. But observing emotional states calmly reduces nervous system resistance, and reduced resistance lowers intensity. Another key idea is mental slowing. Stress speeds up thinking. Racing thoughts create emotional overload. Calm people intentionally slow mental pace. They reduce urgency internally, and this improves clarity dramatically. Another powerful concept is emotional flexibility. Mentally resilient people are not rigid. They adapt, recover, adjust. This flexibility protects the nervous system under pressure. Another important idea is breathing as emotional control technology. Breathing directly affects the autonomic nervous system. Slow exhalations activate calming systems in the brain and body. This is why breath control is one of the fastest ways to regulate stress. Another key concept is awareness of triggers. Every person has emotional triggers, situations that activate stress responses faster. Understanding triggers creates preparation, and preparation reduces emotional surprise. Another powerful idea is practicing calmness during small stress first. Many people wait for major pressure to train it emotional control. But resilience is built gradually, through daily moments, small frustrations, minor discomfort. These moments become training opportunities. Another important principle is emotional neutrality. Not every thought deserves emotional reaction. Not every feeling requires immediate action. Learning emotional neutrality creates stability. Another key idea is attention redirection. The nervous system follows focus. If attention remains fixed on danger, stress increases. If attention shifts toward breathing, solutions, or action, regulation improves. Another powerful concept is identity conditioning. If someone repeatedly practices calmness, eventually they stop trying to be calm. They become someone who remains calm under pressure. Identity transforms through repetition. Another important idea is recovery speed matters more than perfection. Even emotionally resilient people experience stress, but they return to baseline faster. This recovery ability changes long-term emotional health dramatically. Another key concept is environmental regulation. Certain environments support nervous system recovery. Silence, nature, low stimulation, stillness. Repeated exposure to these environments strengthens calmness naturally. Another powerful idea is removing unnecessary stimulation. Many nervous systems remain overloaded because there is no emotional silence. Constant input prevents recovery, and without recovery, emotional stability weakens. Another important principle is physical regulation supports emotional regulation. Sleep, movement, nutrition, recovery. These affect nervous system resilience directly. Another key idea is psychological safety through self-trust. The nervous system calms when it believes I can handle difficult situations. This belief reduces emotional threat perception. Another powerful concept is training before crisis. Calmness cannot suddenly appear under extreme pressure if it was never practiced beforehand. Training creates access during difficult moments. Another important idea is emotional mastery through repetition. Every calm response strengthens calmness. Every regulated reaction rewires the nervous system, slowly, consistently, permanently. Another key concept is resilience as adaptation. Mental strength is not about avoiding stress completely. It is about adapting to stress without collapsing emotionally. Another powerful idea is stillness under pressure, the ability to pause before reacting. This single skill changes emotional outcomes dramatically. Another important principle is long-term nervous system conditioning. Your future emotional state is shaped by what you repeatedly practice today. Panic or calmness, reactivity or regulation. Another key idea is emotional discipline creates freedom. The more control you develop internally, the less external chaos controls you. Finally, this lesson reveals a powerful truth. Calmness is not luck, not personality, not genetics alone. It is training, and the nervous system becomes whatever it repeatedly practices, which means emotional stability is not something outside your reach. It is something you build, breath by breath, moment by moment, reaction by reaction, until one day, the pressure that once overwhelmed you no longer controls you. In the next part, we will explore one of the most powerful tools for emotional control, your breathing, and how mastering it changes the entire nervous system. Control your breathing, control your mind. Before the mind loses control, the body changes first. Breathing becomes fast, shallow, uneven. The chest tightens, the heart begins racing, muscles contract. And within seconds, the nervous system enters survival mode. Most people think panic begins in the mind, but often it begins in the body. And breathing is one of the strongest signals the body sends to the brain. This is why breathing changes everything, because the brain constantly watches the breath for signs of danger. Fast breathing signals threat, slow breathing signals safety, which means every breath is communicating with your nervous system. either increasing stress or reducing it. This is one of the most powerful truths about emotional regulation. You cannot always control what happens around you, but you can influence the state of your nervous system through breathing. And once the nervous system changes, the mind begins changing too. Another important idea is that stress automatically changes breathing patterns. Most people do not notice this happening. But under pressure, breathing often becomes shallow and rapid. This increases carbon dioxide imbalance in the body, which intensifies anxiety symptoms, dizziness, racing thoughts, chest tightness, restlessness, and then the brain interprets these physical sensations as evidence of danger, which increases fear even more. This creates a stress loop. Another key concept is the connection between breath and the autonomic nervous system. The nervous system has two major states: survival activation and recovery regulation. Fast breathing activates survival systems. Slow breathing activates calming systems. This means breathing directly affects emotional state biologically, not metaphorically, literally. Another powerful idea is that exhalation is especially important. Longer exhalations signal safety to the brain. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for recovery and calmness. This is why slow, controlled exhaling reduces emotional intensity so effectively. Another important principle is awareness of unconscious breathing. Most people breathe incorrectly all day without realizing it. Stress breathing becomes habitual, and habitual stress breathing keeps the nervous system partially activated constantly. This creates chronic tension, mental fatigue, and emotional sensitivity. Another key idea is breathing affects thinking speed. Fast breathing increases mental urgency. Thoughts race faster. Focus narrows. Fear intensifies. But slower breathing slows cognitive overload. This creates space for logic and clarity. Another powerful concept is physical grounding through breath. When the mind spirals into fear, attention leaves the present moment. Breathing returns awareness to the body, to the present, to immediate physical reality. This interrupts catastrophic thinking patterns. Another important idea is breath control during pressure. Most people wait until panic becomes overwhelming before trying to calm down. But emotional regulation works best early. The moment stress begins increasing, breathing should slow intentionally. This prevents emotional momentum from escalating. Another key concept is nervous system retraining through repetition. Every time you regulate breathing during stress, the nervous system learns something new. Pressure does not always equal danger, and over time, emotional reactions weaken. Another powerful idea is emotional endurance through breath. Breathing creates tolerance for discomfort. Instead of escaping difficult emotions immediately, controlled breathing allows you to remain present without emotional collapse. Another important principle is the body follows rhythm. Rhythm regulates biology. This is why repetitive breathing patterns stabilize emotional states. The nervous system responds strongly to consistent rhythm. Another key idea is panic intensifies through oxygen imbalance. Many anxious people overbreathe without realizing it. Too much rapid breathing creates physiological symptoms that worsen fear. This is why slowing breathing often reduces panic quickly. Another powerful concept is breath awareness as meditation. Simply observing breathing calmly strengthens emotional awareness, and awareness reduces automatic emotional reactions. Another important idea is calm breathing changes emotional interpretation. The brain constantly interprets bodily signals. If the body remains calm, the brain is less likely to interpret situations as dangerous. Another key concept is breathing and attention control. Breathing gives the mind a stable point of focus during chaos. This prevents attention from becoming fully consumed by fear. Another powerful idea is emotional reset through breath interruption. One slow, intentional breath can interrupt emotional spirals before they intensify. This moment of interruption creates choice instead of automatic reaction. Another important principle is posture affects breathing. Collapsed posture restricts breath and increases stress signals. Open, relaxed posture improves breathing efficiency and emotional regulation. The body and mind constantly influence each other. Another key idea is breath training outside stressful moments. Most people only focus on breathing during panic, but emotional regulation is strongest when breathing control is practiced daily. During calm moments, during ordinary situations, this creates automatic regulation under pressure later. Another powerful concept is nervous system trust. The body begins trusting your ability to regulate stress when calm breathing is repeated consistently. This reduces fear of emotional overwhelm itself. Another important idea is breathing and emotional contagion. Calm breathing affects others too. People unconsciously synchronize emotional rhythms. One regulated nervous system influences surrounding nervous systems. Another key concept is reducing internal urgency. Stress often creates the feeling that everything is urgent. Breathing slowly weakens this illusion, and clarity returns. Another powerful idea is stillness through breath. The breath becomes an anchor during emotional storms, a stable rhythm inside chaos. Another important principle is emotional detachment through observation. Watching the breath teaches non-reactive awareness. This skill changes emotional resilience deeply over time. Another key idea is resilience through recovery speed. Breathing helps the nervous system return to baseline faster after stress. And faster recovery protects long-term mental health. Another powerful concept is breath as direct nervous system communication. Every breath tells the brain something: danger or safety, chaos or control. And most people send danger signals constantly without realizing it. Another important idea is calmness begins physically before mentally. The body often reaches safety before the mind fully follows. This is why physical regulation matters so much. Another key concept is repetition creates automatic calmness. At first, controlled breathing requires effort, but repeated enough times, it becomes instinctive during pressure. Another powerful idea is emotional mastery through physiological control. The person who controls breathing under stress often controls emotional reaction too, because biology influences psychology directly. Finally, this lesson reveals a powerful truth. Breathing is not just survival. It is emotional regulation. It is nervous system control. It is mental stabilization. And the moment you learn to control your breathing during pressure, you begin controlling your mind as well. In the next part, we will explore emotional discipline during chaos and how mentally strong people remain stable while others lose control. Emotional discipline under chaos reveals people, not when life is comfortable, not when everything is easy, but when pressure rises, when uncertainty appears, when emotions intensify. That is when true emotional conditioning becomes visible. Because under pressure, people stop pretending. They return to their training. And most people were never trained emotionally. They were trained to react, to panic, to escape discomfort, to seek immediate relief. This is why chaos destroys clarity for so many people. Because when emotions take control, logic weakens, awareness narrows, impulsive decisions increase, and the nervous system shifts fully into survival mode. But emotionally disciplined people respond differently. Not because they feel nothing, not because they are emotionless, but because they trained themselves to remain stable while emotion exists. This is the real meaning of emotional discipline, not suppressing emotions, not denying stress, but staying internally controlled while pressure is happening. Another important idea is that emotional reactions spread faster during chaos. Fear becomes contagious. Panic multiplies. One emotional reaction triggers another, and soon entire groups lose emotional control together. This happens everywhere: workplaces, families, crowds, online environments. Because under stress, people unconsciously mirror emotional energy around them. This is why emotionally disciplined individuals become powerful stabilizers. Their calmness changes environments. Another key concept is slowing down under pressure. Most people speed up emotionally during chaos. They think faster, speak faster, react faster, and this intensifies mistakes. But emotionally strong people do the opposite. They slow themselves deliberately. They breathe, observe, pause. And this pause changes everything, because the space between emotion and reaction is where control exists. Another powerful idea is emotional separation. Most people become fully absorbed by what they feel. Fear becomes identity. Stress becomes reality. But emotionally disciplined people learn observation. They notice emotion without immediately becoming controlled by it. This creates psychological distance, and distance weakens emotional intensity. Another important principle is clarity under pressure. Pressure naturally narrows attention toward threat. This was useful for survival, but modern chaos often requires broader thinking. Strategic thinking, calm thinking, and emotional regulation protects clarity. Another key idea is discomfort tolerance. Most emotional reactions come from resistance to discomfort itself. People panic because they desperately want the discomfort to stop immediately. But emotionally resilient people allow discomfort without immediate collapse. This changes the nervous system profoundly, because the brain learns discomfort is survivable. Another powerful concept is emotional momentum. Every emotional reaction strengthens the next one. Panic accelerates panic. Anger accelerates anger. But calmness also builds momentum. One stable breath, one grounded decision, one intentional pause. These small moments accumulate into emotional control. Another important idea is internal leadership. Emotionally disciplined people lead themselves first, before leading situations, before influencing others. They regulate internally, before reacting externally, and this creates stability. Another key concept is avoiding emotional amplification. Most people unconsciously intensify situations mentally. They exaggerate outcomes, imagine worst-case scenarios, repeat fearful thoughts, and emotional intensity grows. But disciplined minds interrupt amplification early. They return attention to reality, to facts, to the present moment. Another powerful idea is emotional neutrality during uncertainty. Not every uncertain situation requires panic. Not every uncomfortable moment means danger. Emotionally disciplined people understand this distinction deeply. Another important principle is controlling physical reactions early. The body changes before emotional escalation fully develops. Tension, breathing, heart rate, posture. Regulating these early weakens emotional spirals significantly. Another key idea is detachment from emotional urgency. Stress creates false urgency, the feeling that immediate reaction is necessary. But emotionally strong people pause before reacting, and this pause protects judgment. Another powerful concept is resilience through repeated exposure. Emotional discipline is built gradually, by remaining stable during manageable stress repeatedly. This trains the nervous system over time. Another important idea is emotional containment. Feeling emotion internally without immediately projecting it outward. This is strength, not suppression, but controlled expression. Another key concept is awareness of emotional triggers. Certain situations activate emotional patterns automatically. Recognizing triggers creates preparation, and preparation increases regulation. Another powerful idea is calmness during uncertainty. Most people need certainty to feel emotionally safe, but life rarely guarantees certainty. Emotionally disciplined people learn stability even when outcomes are unclear, and this creates psychological freedom. Another important principle is identity under pressure. People behave according to emotional identity. Someone who sees themselves as fragile collapses faster under stress. Someone who identifies as resilient regulates more effectively. Identity shapes reaction. Another key idea is emotional recovery speed. Emotionally disciplined people are not always calm immediately, but they recover faster, return to clarity faster, stabilize faster, and this changes long-term mental health dramatically. Another powerful concept is reducing emotional noise. Many people overload themselves continuously. Too much stimulation, too much information, too many emotional inputs, and overloaded minds regulate poorly under pressure. Another important idea is self-trust during difficult moments. The nervous system calms when it believes, I can handle this. This internal trust changes emotional reactions deeply. Another key concept is emotional discipline through routine. Daily practices strengthen nervous system stability. Breathing, stillness, reflection, recovery. These create emotional resilience gradually. Another powerful idea is resisting emotional contagion. Emotionally disciplined people do not automatically absorb surrounding panic. They remain centered while others react. And this is rare. Another important principle is psychological endurance, the ability to remain emotionally stable while discomfort continues, without immediate escape, without collapse. This creates enormous mental strength. Another key idea is observing thoughts without obeying them. Thoughts during stress are often distorted, fear-based, exaggerated. Learning observation instead of automatic belief changes emotional control profoundly. Another powerful concept is emotional regulation before communication. Many problems intensify because people speak while emotionally dysregulated. Calmness first, communication second. This changes outcomes dramatically. Another important idea is controlled energy. Emotionally disciplined people conserve energy during chaos. They do not waste emotional energy reacting to everything. This preserves clarity. Another key concept is mental stillness, the ability to remain internally steady while external chaos exists. This is emotional mastery. Another powerful idea is growth through pressure. Pressure itself is not destructive, Uncontrolled reaction to pressure is destructive. And once emotional discipline develops, pressure becomes training instead of threat. Finally, this lesson reveals a powerful truth. Chaos does not decide your emotional state automatically. Your conditioning does, and emotional discipline can be trained, strengthened, repeated, until one day the situations that once overwhelmed you become situations you can handle with clarity and control. In the next part, we will explore one of the deepest mental skills of all, detachment from panic, and how to stop becoming mentally consumed by fear. Detachment from panic. Panic does not begin with reality. It begins with interpretation. A thought appears. Something feels uncertain. The mind imagines danger. And within seconds, the nervous system reacts as if the threat is already real. Heart racing, chest tightening, breathing changing, thoughts accelerating. And then something powerful happens. The person stops observing fear and becomes consumed by it. This is where panic grows strongest, not when fear appears, but when identity fuses with fear completely. Because the moment you believe every fearful thought automatically, the nervous system loses stability. This is why detachment changes everything, not emotional numbness, not denial, but the ability to observe fear without immediately becoming controlled by it. This is one of the deepest forms of mental strength, because emotionally resilient people still experience fear, still experience pressure, still experience uncertainty, but they do not fully surrender awareness to panic. They maintain observation during emotional intensity, and that observation creates control. Another important idea is that thoughts are not always reality. Under stress, the brain exaggerates danger automatically. This is survival conditioning. The mind predicts worst-case scenarios to protect you. But prediction is not certainty. Fearful thinking is not always truth, and learning this distinction weakens panic dramatically. Another key concept is cognitive fusion. Most people fuse completely with their thoughts. If the mind says something is wrong, they immediately believe it. If the mind says, "You cannot handle this," the body reacts as if failure is guaranteed. But mentally resilient people create separation. They observe thoughts instead of instantly obeying them. And this separation changes emotional experience profoundly. Another powerful idea is awareness interrupts emotional spirals. Panic gains power through unconscious momentum. One fearful thought triggers another, then another, until awareness disappears completely. But conscious observation interrupts this process. The moment you notice, "My mind is spiraling," you weaken the spiral itself, because awareness creates psychological distance. Another important principle is emotional waves are temporary. Panic feels permanent while it is happening. But emotional states rise and fall naturally. The nervous system cannot sustain extreme activation forever. Understanding this reduces fear of panic itself. Another key idea is fear of fear. Many people are not only afraid of situations, they become afraid of their own emotional reactions, afraid of anxiety, afraid of panic, afraid of losing control, and this secondary fear intensifies nervous system activation even more. But detachment weakens this cycle because observation reduces emotional resistance. Another powerful concept is the observer mindset. Inside every emotional experience, there is still awareness, a part of the mind capable of observing even during intense stress. Strengthening this observing awareness creates enormous emotional stability because the observer remains calmer than the reaction itself. Another important idea is panic narrows perception. Under fear, the mind sees fewer possibilities, fewer solutions, fewer options. This is survival focus. But detachment widens perception again, and wider perception improves emotional regulation. Another key concept is catastrophic thinking. The brain often jumps to extreme conclusions under stress. Worst-case scenarios: permanent disaster, total failure. But most feared outcomes never happen the way panic predicts them. Recognizing this weakens emotional exaggeration. Another powerful idea is grounding attention in the present moment. Panic usually lives in imagined futures. What if this happens? What if I fail? What if everything goes wrong? But the present moment is often far safer than the imagined future. Returning attention to immediate reality reduces panic intensity. Another important principle is physical observation during fear. Noticing body sensations calmly changes nervous system response. Heart racing, sweaty hands, tension. These sensations are uncomfortable, but not necessarily dangerous. Observation without panic reduces escalation. Another key idea is reducing emotional resistance. Most people fight panic aggressively, trying to force it away immediately, but resistance often intensifies emotional activation. Calm observation reduces internal struggle, and reduced struggle weakens panic. Another powerful concept is detachment from urgency. Panic creates the feeling that immediate escape is necessary, but emotionally resilient people pause before reacting impulsively, and this pause changes outcomes dramatically. Another important idea is emotional labeling. Naming emotional states calmly reduces nervous system intensity. I notice fear, I notice anxiety, I notice stress. This activates awareness instead of unconscious reaction. Another key concept is identity beyond emotion. You are not your panic, not your fear, not your anxious thoughts. These are experiences happening within awareness, not the entirety of who you are, and this distinction creates freedom. Another powerful idea is nervous system desensitization. Repeated calm observation during fear teaches the brain something powerful. Fear itself is survivable, and slowly, emotional sensitivity decreases. Another important principle is reducing mental over-identification. Thoughts are events in the mind, not absolute commands, not guaranteed truths. Learning this changes emotional resilience deeply. Another key idea is emotional acceptance without surrender. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means acknowledging reality without emotional war against it. This creates stability. Another powerful concept is slowing interpretation speed. Most people interpret situations emotionally within seconds, but mentally disciplined people pause before assigning meaning, and this reduces unnecessary panic. Another important idea is separating discomfort from catastrophe. The brain often treats discomfort as disaster, but discomfort is part of life, not proof of danger. This understanding weakens panic dramatically. Another key concept is self-trust during emotional intensity. The nervous system calms when it believes, even if fear appears, I can handle it. This internal trust changes emotional reactions profoundly. Another powerful idea is breathing during observation. Slow breathing while observing fear reduces survival activation. This keeps awareness stronger than panic. Another important principle is mental flexibility. Panic creates rigid thinking. Detachment restores flexibility. And flexibility creates emotional resilience. Another key idea is emotional recovery through non-reactivity. The less you intensify panic with secondary fear, the faster the nervous system recovers naturally. Another powerful concept is practicing detachment during small stress first. Minor frustrations become opportunities to strengthen observation skills. This builds emotional resilience gradually. Another important idea is calmness through perspective. Most stressful moments feel permanent during emotional activation, but nearly all emotional states eventually pass. Remembering this weakens panic intensity. Another key concept is awareness before reaction. This single shift changes emotional life dramatically. Observe first, react second. Another powerful idea is emotional freedom through observation. The moment you stop automatically obeying fear, you begin reclaiming control over your mind. Finally, this lesson reveals a powerful truth. Panic gains power when awareness disappears. But the moment you observe fear, instead of becoming consumed by it, something changes. Space appears. Clarity returns. Control becomes possible again. And this is where real emotional mastery begins. In the next part, we will explore how to rewire the nervous system itself, so calmness becomes more natural than panic over time. Becoming mentally unshakable. Pressure will always exist. Stress will always exist. Uncertainty will always exist. You cannot remove all chaos from life, but you can change how your mind responds to it. And that changes everything, because mental strength is not about avoiding pressure. It is about remaining stable inside it. Throughout this journey, one truth became clear. The mind is trainable. The nervous system is adaptable. Calmness is learnable. Every breath, every reaction, every moment of awareness is shaping your emotional conditioning. Most people spend their lives reacting automatically. Fear controls them. Stress controls them. Panic controls them. But emotionally resilient people train a different response. They pause, observe, breathe, regulate. And over time, this becomes identity, not forced, not temporary, natural. This is how mentally unshakable people are built, not through perfect lives, but through repeated moments of emotional control during difficulty. Another important idea is that calmness is power, not loud power, not aggressive power, but controlled power, the ability to think clearly while others panic, the ability to stay grounded while chaos spreads, the ability to remain emotionally steady when pressure rises. This changes decisions, relationships, health, leadership, and life itself. Another key concept is self-trust. The nervous system calms when it believes, I can handle difficult moments. This trust is built through experience, through surviving pressure, through regulating emotion repeatedly. Another powerful idea is that fear loses strength when you stop running from it. Every time you remain calm during discomfort, the brain learns safety, and slowly, panic stops controlling your life. Finally, remember this: your mind is always training itself, either toward reactivity or toward resilience, either toward panic or toward calmness, and the emotional patterns you repeat today become the nervous system you live with tomorrow. So train your mind carefully. Train your breathing carefully. Train your reactions carefully. Because the person who learns to stay calm under pressure becomes stronger than the pressure itself.